It works.
We're on Kuf Mem Hey, Masechta Shabbos, 145. We said, Mosif Ravina, Tomei Meisha Sochat Zeisi Vanofi. A person who was Tomei, Tumas Meis, if he touches olives, they're exactly Kebetza Mechuvenes. It's tar because it's got to be bigger than a Kebetza. Hayoiser mikabetza tomei. That which, if it's bigger than a betza, it's tomei. If you're going to tell me that fluid that comes from a food is considered food, and the liquid comes out, how does that liquid get hechsher l'kabel tuma? It also has to be moistened. Who moistened flavu mafarkla b'soch l'tocha ka'ara. It was squeezed into a bowl, which is for the purposes of a fluid, and certainly tome can impact a fluid, even if it's not machshel l'kabel tuma. It's always ready to kabel tuma. It doesn't need hechsher. Now, this issue of whether fluid within a food is considered food or not, on Rav Yirmiyah Kitanoi, he says machlekes tanoi. Machlik banovim. A person applies he squeezes grapes onto the loaf of his bread to make it shiny, like people do it with an egg wash. But he did it with grape juice. Hamachlik banovim lo hochsher. So the Tana, the Tana says that the bread, normally grape juice, is a fluid that would be machshir, a dry food to be a kabel tum. But the Tana Kama says this is not fluid, this is ochel, because you're not using it to drink, you're using it to make the loaf of bread look nicer. Rabbi Yehuda Omer hochsher. Rabbi Yehuda says no, it's a fluid. And the Gemara wants to say, my la the Tana Kama says that who said that the bread does not become tamei because the fluid that came out of the grape is not a fluid, it's a food. It's not a mashke. Only mashke can be machshir something makabel too. Umar savar, but the other mandam Rav Yehuda says it's a fluid that comes out of a food is still a fluid. Rav Papa says no, it's not correct. Kula alma mashke bala oichel lavoichel. Everybody holds that fluid that emanates from a grape is not ochel, it's fluid. So what's the machlokas here? Whether fluid, when you apply this grape juice to the outside of the loaf of bread that you're going to bake, is going to burn off. It's not going to remain liquid. And the shaila is mashke abali ibud kamif. When you have fluid, but it's eventually the fluid's going to evaporate or go away, does that have the status of mashke? Marsav or mashkehu. Rabbi Yehuda will say yes, even though it's going to burn off, it's still a mashke. It's mashke the flow to become a tumah. Umarsav or lav mashkehu. And the Tanakama who said that the loaf of bread does not become tamei, holds it's because the fluid is habala ibud and doesn't have the status of mashke. Ubepluk tadani tanoi, and that's another machlokas tanoi. The Tanya. Hamifatzeo bazeisim biyadai nesuah. The person's hands are tamei. If you didn't do natilas yadai into your hands, it's a status of a tumah. Now, you're the farmer, and you want to squeeze the grapes to check whether or not they're ripe or not, they're ready to be squeezed or not. So we say, if you squeeze the grape, huchsher, the fluid that comes out of it will suffice to be machshir your hands from kabel tumah. Now, l'soiften b'melach. If you're going, you have to now brine these olives in salt, but they might be too hard to do that yet. So you're sort of squeezing them to check what's going on with them on the inside. So then we say lo huchsher. Then we say his hands do not become machshir, because first of all, he wasn't really happy that it came out. Because if he did it later, if he wants to whether the olives are ready to be pressed, also lo huchsher. It also does not mekabel tumah. He doesn't want the beverage at all right now. You know, omer huchsher. And what's the machlokas here? My lava kamifli. Demar savar mashka omed liibud. Whether you don't want the food, you're just checking the status of the olive. Do you consider that a mashke? So the one who says that there's a hechshel kabel tumah holds that even mashka omed liibud is mashke. Umar savar lav mashku. Omer with a brother of Yishu hay tanoi. B'mashka omed liibud pligi. This machlokas tanoim about fluid that is going to be lost is, for example, fluid that was used just to coat a loaf of bread, whether that's considered a Michael or an Oichel or not. So two different machlokas tanoim. On Shabbos, you can squeeze a bunch of grapes into a dish, but not into a bowl, because when you're squeezing it into the dish, it's food. And when you're eating in the bowl, you're going to drink it, and that you can't be soichet on Shabbos. If you squeeze fish to get the fish brine out of, that you can squeeze it even into a bowl. Now, Yosef Ravdimi v'Karmel Shmaitza. They were learning this sugya. Amalei Abal Ravdimi. Asomish made the Rav Mastis v'Lei Kashlachu. We heard this brisa from the words of Rav. We didn't have a problem, but Anamish made a Shmuel Maz v'Kashala. We had a problem with Shmuel saying Rav. We didn't have a problem, but with Shmuel we did. We'll show you why. Because Miyamar Shmuel Dag l'tziraf l'toch hakara. That if you're squeezing fish for its brine, you can squeeze it into a bowl by itmar. Kivoshim shesochta. You have, pickled vegetables, and you squeeze them. Amarav legufan mutter. You want to eat the vegetables. You don't care about the fluid that's coming out of it. It's permitted, mumar. But if you want, if you're squeezing it for the beverage, for the fluid, potter of a loss. It's not fully mefarek, says Rashi, to give you a chi of chatas, but you are separating fluid from the thing which didn't grow inside of it, says Rashi. How do you pickle vegetables? You soak it in salt water. So this stuff that was in the vegetable came from outside source, not from the inside. Ushlokois, cooked vegetables, bein leguf and bein lememan mut. You can squeeze whatever you want. It's permitted. Because it's not called mashke, it's called oichel. Ushmuel omar, echad kosh bechad shloch, is whether it pickled vegetables or cooked legufan, if you want the food, mutter l'memei and potter v'loser. So how can you tell me that fish, according to Shmuel, you can squeeze out? He doesn't allow shlokos. Omer le Elohim einai ro v'lo zar kol yosef b'cheiki. This halacha was not said in the name of Shmuel. Says he took an oath. Mipumid Rav Yirmiyah Shmuel Rav Yirmiyah Rav Zeir Rav Chia Barashi Rav Chia Barashi Meiba. The halacha was never said in the name of Shmuel. So it's not a kasha. And we hold like Shmuel that it's usher to squeeze fish juice into, for its brine. If you take pickled vegetables, you want to squeeze them, it's permitted if you want to eat the vegetable. But if you want the inner fluid, it's not permitted. You could do it directly into a dish of food, then it would be permitted. Gufa. Kvashim shesoftan. We're going into detail this thing that we mentioned in passing. Vegetables that you squeezed, amarav legufan mutter. If you want to eat the vegetable, and that's why you're doing it, it's permitted. L'meimei and potter avalos. It's not a chiyuv chatas, but it's also. Ushlokois, cooked vegetables, bein legufan, bein l'meimei, whether you want to eat it or whether you want the vegetable juice mutter, because it's not juice, it's just food. Ushmul amar echad zeh v'echad zeh legufan mutter l'meimei and potter avalos. Rabbi Yochanan, our third sheet, the echad kvashim v'echad shlokos. The gufan mutter l'meimei and chayv chatas. He holds it's mamish mafarik because you got fluid out of you want fluid out of something from the inside. So on these three shittas, basically, would ask you a kasha. We bring a baraisa. Soichtin kvashim b'Shabbos l'tzorach Shabbos. You can squeeze pickled vegetables on Shabbos for the purpose of Shabbos, as long as you're going to eat them on Shabbos. Lo l'motzei Shabbos, but not for chol. Olives and grapes you shouldn't squeeze. That's mamish. These things are the regular way. It's like grape juice is meant to squeeze, and you squeeze it. That's mafarik. So first of all, kasha l'Rav, kasha l'Shmuel, kasha l'Aviram, kasha on all three of these. Rav metarz l'tamei, Shmuel metarz l'tamei, Rav Yochanan metarz l'tamei. Each one is metarz this price according to their own svara. Rav metarz l'tamei, soichtin kvashim b'Shabbos l'tzorach Shabbos. You're allowed to squeeze pickled vegetables on Shabbos for Shabbos of all motzei Shabbos. Bamed Rama, when do we say that legufa? That's if you want to eat. You're squeezing the fluid out because you want the fluid, then you want to eat the item itself. But for its fluid, it's potter. It's usher. Midrabanan. Ushloko is ben legufan ben lememan mutter. Cooked vegetables will be permitted no matter what. So that's how Rav is metarz brisa for his sheep. Shmuel metarz l'tamei tzortin kvashim b'Shabbos l'tzorach Shabbos, and who adin l'shlokos. It works for pickled vegetables as well as cooked vegetables. That's if you can do it if it's for the vegetable itself. And for its fluid, potter avalos, it's prohibited. Same thing. Rabbi Yochanan metarz l'tamei tzortin kvashim b'tzorach Shabbos. You can squeeze pickled vegetables on Shabbos as long as you can use it on Shabbos. Avalolo motzei Shabbos. Echad kvashim v'echad shlokos, whether it's pickled or cooked vegetables. But for their fluid, you can't squeeze. It's as if you squeeze grapes and olives v'chayv chat. Comes an important halacha. To get a chatis, the only thing that's awesome in a Torah bisman hazeh is when you squeeze olives and grapes for their fluid, and you didn't use it for food. By all peros macholim, the isser of squeezing is only midrabanan. This is the only one that you chayiv chatis for. Now, once you're giving me standard halacha, he gives me some others. Ein eid mipi eid kosher, ela le'edus edus bovad. We don't allow hearsay testimony. Meaning, if we're going to bring somebody to Beis Din to try him for the murder of Shimon by Ruvain, we need two Eidim. We're going to be physically there, 1 o'clock on Monday afternoon at Joe's bar, who saw Reuven kill Shimon. It can't just be Reuven who saw it, and Shimon heard it from somebody who was there and then told him, but Shimon was not there. We don't, that's a hearsay. We don't accept Eid Mipi Eid, except in one case, Eidus Isha. A woman's husband goes off to China and doesn't come back. And one witness comes back and says, I saw your husband dead. Or let's say one witness comes back and says, no, somebody told me that they saw your husband dead. That's called Eid Mipi Eid. And she's allowed to remarry based on that. Because, says Rashi, Akilu Barabana Mishumiguna. Because we don't want her to be left a chained woman, we let her get married based on more lenient Eidus. And anyways, called the Mekadesh Adaita Rabbanim Mekadesh. When we say Areat Mekudesh Asli with Kedas Moshe Yisrael, what we're saying is our Kiddushin is basically Al Das Chachamim. Vavkur Rabbanim LeKiddushin. And all they have to do anyways is to be mafkia the original Kiddushin, who she was married to, even if the guy shows up. That's another reason why they could be makel in that situation, because the whole concept of Kiddushin is given to the Chachamim to do or undo the way they need to. And there's other leniencies by Eidus Isha. We allow the testimony of a woman, even Isha. Okay, Iboiling. Eid Mipi Eid le'edus b'chor mahu. We have a din of a b'chor, firstborn animal. You have to give it to a Kohen. Now, what the Kohen does with a b'chor depends. If the animal is a tummy, if it's unblemished, he has to bring it to the Mesa Mikdash, offer it as a korban shlamim. He can eat of the meat, and he can invite you as well. It's not like truma, but it has to be offered as a korban. Now, if the bechor gets a mum, so now a mum can't be offered, so it becomes the personal asset of the Kohen. And now the Kohen can do whatever he wants with that animal. He can shecht it and eat the whole animal. By a shlamim, he has to be eaten in Yerushalayim. And only certain parts are eaten, blah, blah, blah. But here it becomes a personal asset of the Kohen. So they were very, especially when the Bechor was already given to the Kohen, and a mum appeared in an animal. We're going to learn in Masechta Bechoros that the Kohanim were suspected that they put the mum themselves into the Bechor because it's much better for them financially. And they're not believed to say, oh, this mum happened here by itself. They have to bring aid in. Now, over there in Masechta Bechoros, we learn that even a woman is kosher to that kind of aidus. Right? When we say eid echad neman be'isurim, so that's even a woman who tells us she is tohar and we can live with her. That's based on the concept of eid echad neman be'isurim, and she's also eid isha. So, what we wanted to know is eid mipi eid le'edus b'chor mahu. What about hearsay aid, one aid telling another aid regarding this issue that the mum fell into the bechor not by the Kohen doing it? Ravami asir, Ravasi shari, Ravami prohibited, Ravasi permitted. Ravami Ravasi. We gave us a criteria that aid mipi aid is only kosher for edus isha. Obviously, it's not kosher for edus bechor. Ema le'edus sha'isha ksheira lo b'chor means An Eid B'Piyat is kosher for that kind of testimony that only a woman is kosher for. And just like a woman is kosher for Eid B'Piyat for Eidus Isha to remarry, an Isha is also permitted to testify about a Bechorah. In fact, Rav Yemer Achshar Eid B'Piyat L'Bechor. However, Koyel and Remer Yemer Shari Buchor, they call them Yemer, the permitted of Bechor. But V'Hilchasa Eid B'Piyat kosher L'Bechor. The halacha is it's Eid B'Piyat is kosher, that it wasn't done by the Kohen. Chalois Dvash, we said if a honeycomb was chopped up before Shabbos and the honey runs out, so Kiyosra V'Shimon Ardo also V'Aisim Asis B'Yadei, he brought the barisa with his hand. Zaysev Anozim Shriskom Erev Shabbos. If you chopped up olives and grapes from Erev Shabbos and oil and wine ran out of it, the Yotzum Atzman Asur, and that we said is prohibited because you're going to come to squeeze. But Rabbi Loz, Rabbi Shimon Matirin, they permitted. Rav Yosef Gavri Yisera Asur Lashmin. What are you telling me? It's the same thing as the Mishnah. Only I buy a tuba komashman. It's a big chiddush. Buy a honeycomb. Honeycomb is honey, and the honey is honey. But by grapes and olives, where you're starting off with food and you end up with liquid amalo, kamash malon, that is permitted as well. And that's the din, says the Shulchan Aruch, that if you chop up grapes or olives from before Shabbos and it runs out even in Shabbos, you can benefit. You can use that fluid. Mishnah. Kol Shabbat b'chamim erev Shabbos. If something was cooked in hot water erev Shabbos, shari no so b'chamim b'Shabbos. You can soak it in hot water on Shabbos as well to maybe soften it up more, because ein bishul achar bishul. It's already been cooked. The kol shelo b'chamim erev Shabbos. If something has not been cooked in hot water erev Shabbos, medichin no so b'chamim b'Shabbos. You can only pour hot water on this thing on Shabbos. Chutz min hamaliyach hayashon, the dogim meluchim ktanim, except for salted fish and old aged fish. The kulyasai spanim in Spanish, another type of a fish. Shadachas and zuig marmlachan, that they are almost cooked already, and therefore even by pouring hot water on it, that's the way you cook it. So, what would you soak in hot water on Shabbos that you cooked there of Shabbos? Kagon mai, on Rav Safra kagon tarnagol to the Rababa. He would soak a chicken for like many days in hot water, and it would like dissolve. It's like the ultimate chicken soup, and he used it for refuah. Rav Safra zimna chadi plus lawson. I once went there. I guess by Rav Safra, v'oichle minei, and we ate. By Rav Abba, who made this dissolved chicken dish. We ate from it. If he didn't give us really powerful wine, I would have fainted, because it was very difficult to eat this thing. Like, dissolved chicken. I would have vomited. Rav Yochanan Reich mikutach de Bavloi. He would vomit eating Babylonian kutach. It was like a mayonnaise. I would vomit from this dissolved chicken. We once went to Bavel, they made us this Babylonian kutach. But the sick people of Eretz Yisrael all demanded it from him, because I guess it had medicinal properties. So Koshlo Baba Chamin, we said that if you took this Spanish fish and you poured water on it, it would cook it. It means you cooked it and you get chatas. Something that was old and salted. This is the way you cook it. Yosef Rav Chia Bar Rabasi Kamed Rav Yechon Yosef Rav Yechon Kamed Namne. Rav Yechon was sleeping. So while Rav Yechon was sleeping, Rav Chia asked Rav Asi a number of questions. Why are the birds in Bavel so fat? They were like debating who. One was from Eretz Yisrael, the other was from Bavel. So Chia asked Rav Asi, who is from Bavel, he asked Rav Asi, so he asked him, I'll show you birds in the Aza area that are fatter than those. Then he asked him, why is it so joyous on Yontif in Bavel? He says, because they're poor, and the poor people, they wait for Yontif to, let down their hair. I guess the Tamil Chacham in Bavel wore very nice clothes. Why? They weren't really big Tamil Chacham. They had to get their honor somehow. So they got their honor by wearing nice clothes. Then he asked them, why do Avdei Kachavim have bad spiritual natures? That's one pshat. Other pshat muzomim mean like they have body odor. But most learn it has to do with ethics. Says the Gemara, they eat shrimp, they eat snails, they eat all the creepy crawling, non-kosher stuff, and that sort of contaminates them, even spiritually. All of a sudden, Iter Bohu Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan woke up from his nap. But even though he was napping, he must have heard everything they said. Armalu Darbiki. You children, tell wisdom you are your sister. What does that mean? You know what? If you know something is clear that you're not allowed to live with your sister, then you should say something. If not, you should keep still. You should keep quiet. So tell us, what did we say wrong? So he said, why? Why are the birds in Bavel so fat? They never went into Golus. That there's a positive aspect of not going into Golus. Eretz Yisrael birds, how do we know belong to Golus? The Tanya, Rabbi Omer. That once Nebuchadnezzar, after they killed Gedalia ben Achikam, because they had originally left a Jewish community there, but after they assassinated Gedalia, they took everybody away. And for 52 years, nobody was in Yehuda. Shnemer al Ha'arim Esab Chivanehi. That even the birds and the animals had left Eretz Yisrael. Behema begematria chamshin v'tartnavi, and the 52 years is the gematria behema. Rav Yaakov and all the animals came back. Chutz mikulia cites by the Spanish ispanan never came back. They go underwater to the spring of Eitam in Yerushalayim. And that's how all the fish came back to Bavel. But this Spanish fish, Kivin de los Shorishidri Lamatzi Salik. It doesn't have a strong spine. It couldn't swim upstream because Eretz Yisrael is up, is higher of elevation. So it didn't go back to Eretz Yisrael. This is still Rav Yochanan. Why are they happy so much on Yontif in Bavel? Because Eretz Yisrael got a klala. I'm going to cause to stop all the happiness of Yontif and Shabbos in Eretz Yisrael. And all your Rosh Chodesh celebrations and your Yontif celebrations in Eretz Yisrael became for me a burden. It's not bad enough for Klal Yisrael that they sin against me. I've got to figure out what kind of evil decree I have to bring on them. That every Yontif, the Roman legions would come to collect fines and to, kidnap people. So it was always, Yontif was a fearful time. These were other Roman officers that came to collect, taxes, and they would disturb the simcha of the Yontif. Why were the Talmidei Chacham in Bavel so dressed so nicely? Because they were strangers in a strange land. So they had to be worn, they had to, as a siman, they had to look special. This is like a saying. I'm famous in my place because of my name. But when I'm not in my place, I'm famous because of my clothing. Habayim Yashresh Yaakov Yatzitzu Farach Yisrael. Tani Rav Yosef Tamei Chacham Bavel Shoyis in Tzitzu Farachim La Torah. These are the Tamei Chacham in Bavel that they caused Torah to grow. And then the reason why there's a spiritual lack by the non-Jew is because they did not have the schus to stand by our Sinai. Okay, so tomorrow I'm going to try to learn at 5 o'clock. If I don't get home on time,